forward for ceilings for the Canadian Forces Snowbirds from Saskatchewan, and of course, you don't want to miss the United States Navy's Flight Demonstration Squadron, the Blue Angels. As we watch Bill fly and turn it into a 4-point hesitation roll, you're looking at one of about 22,000 of Texans and their variants that were built. I mentioned before to you when Bill flew earlier that nearly 30 Allied nations flew Texans or their variants from the first production line aircraft in 1938 till production ended in 1945, and then modifications were made after that in the late 1940s. The T-6 was known by the United States Air Force as the pilot major, and also by the Navy. The Navy called it the SMJ for their advanced trainer. It was the last aircraft that a pilot would see, would fly before he moved on to other airplanes in either the Navy or the United States Army Air Force. Now let's see if we can get Bill Leff on the air up in the cockpit there and turn on the radio, and we'll transmit to him, see if he can hear us. Hello, Bill Leff, are you with me? Hello, Bill Leff, are you with me?
Yes, sir. Well, I say it is kind of chilly, though.
I bet it is, but you got 600 horsepower kind of keeping you a little bit warm, right?
You bet. Hang on.
Bill Leff rolls the airplane over in a 300
Radio count this slow roll there for you.
You know, that's a tough maneuver for you to do, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, this gal, she doesn't like flying upside down, so we have to be a little careful when we do the slow roll.
Yeah, 5,500 pounds, that's a lot of trainer for a young airman or a Navy cadet to learn to fly, isn't it?
You bet it is. That's what they use these for. In World War II, these were advanced trainers for all the services.
And even the Air Force and the Royal Air Force liked it. They called it the Harvard. It's kind of like an institution of higher learning.
There you go.
All right, Bill, up you go. How high are you right now? Like 500 feet above the ground?
About that.
Bill, quickly fly. All right, gotcha. That's a good weather check. And do a quick roll now. That's a little bit easier to do a fast roll like that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's called an aileron roll as opposed to a slow roll. We'll come by next time and do a 4-point roll.
All right, we'll stop at every 90 degrees of roll. Sounds good to me.
Okay, here we come. See if you can count with me. Wings level.
Nose coming up. About 50 degrees. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. All the way around. Perfect, Bill.
Let's try a little horizontal 8 on the next run here, Rob. That'll be a 4G turn. We'll center it on the trailer the Blue Angels use.
All right, very good. I'll talk the folks through it. You fly it.
All right. Here we come for 4Gs.
Now watch Bill as he dives down toward the ground. He's going to do a figure 8 lying flat. And when he says 4 Gs, that means he's going to exert his body 4 times, on his body 4 times the pull of gravity. Watch him fly. Quick, 90 degrees of bank. He pulls hard, being shoved into his seat at 4 Gs. As he gets back over that trailer, he'll run the wings level and then reverse the bank 90 degrees to do running on his air show smoke. If you were up above it and the smoke weren't being blown around, you would see, looking straight down on it, the figure 8. As I mentioned earlier, a 200-pound man at 4 Gs would weigh 800 pounds. And so Bill's got to work very hard to make sure that the blood doesn't rush out of his head, so he actually constricts the muscles in his legs and his stomach to keep that blood in the upper portion of his body so he doesn't black out or lose consciousness. Bill, you have to do a little bit of a hick maneuver, don't you, when you're pulling 4Gs to keep the blood in the upper part of your body?
Yeah, it might be. If they sure do. He'll come by and do kind of a climbing point. There's the landing gear here.
All right. Now watch the landing gear as he does a 2-point to a 4-point roll. And the gear is now out. Okay, the gear was out, but normally you'd say the gear was down, but the gear went up when you were upside down. How do you figure that?
Oh, I call that extending the gear. Okay, that works for me, buddy. That works for me. Okay, since the gear's down, let's try a dirty roll.
Aerodynamically dirty roll. There's a lot of extra drag on the airplane right now, so Bill's going to get his entry speed. Entry speed, what, 170?
Coming up on 160 right now. Here we go.
160 miles an hour. Watch it roll the airplane all the way around. The landing gear sticking out really increases the drag on the airplane.
So we'll try one go the other direction, and then we'll try a little slowdown.
All right, yeah, I bet you're going to do pretty well.
Yeah, boy. One more dirty roll.
All right, it's pretty much an on-crowd wind, favoring maybe a right-to-left slow pass, actually.
Okay, we're going to do a high alpha pass. Why don't you tell them about high alpha?
All right, I sure will. Now, Bill's going to do the high alpha pass. Just slow roll here. Alpha is a term that means angle of attack. And that is the angle that the nose of the airplane is pulled up above the relative wind, or in this case, the horizon. So he'll slow the airplane down by pulling back on the throttle, pull the stick back a little bit, and the nose will come up higher and higher and higher, and allow him to use the wind to help slow him down. Okay, Bill, bring that nose up.
Alright, we're going to slow her down. We got gear down, flaps are full, landing configuration, and I'll give you an update on the ground speed. I'm just coming past 70 indicated, getting her down to 65 my target, and I'm showing 55 miles or knots right now. I'm going to slow down a little bit more.
55 knots across the ground, that's just over 62 miles an hour.
There you go, 54. Alright, going to speed her back up.
600 horsepower and keep it going slow and fast, won't it?
Oh yeah.
The radial engine that you hear is built by Pratt & Whitney, generating...
Hey, while I'm turning around here, Rob, I want to give a big shout out to all those folks that have come to this air show and raise the weather. But we're going to try and put on a great show for you today. And I want to have a special salute out to all those sailors, airmen, Marines, soldiers, and members of the Coast Guard for watching out for us 24/7.
Yeah, without them, we don't have this freedom, do we?
No, sir. And we wouldn't have these cool airplanes to fly.
Yes, indeed. What's coming up, Bill?
Let's try another slow roll.
Okay, as he rolls, he's now rolling the airplane to the left, pushes on the right rudder pedal, pushes the stick forward as he goes upside down, neutralizes the rudder. Now left rudder as the stick comes around and neutralizes it. Beautifully done. Nice job, Bill. Hey, Bill, you've got one of those classic stories of, doing whatever you could around an airport to earn your pilot's license. You had a paper route, too, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, the birthplace of aviation. And in my neighborhood, I had a couple guys, well, actually one of them was alive at the time I was born, but anyway, delivered newspapers to their house, and that was Orville Wright's house.
One of the Wright brothers who changed the world by powered flight back in December of 1903, and you delivered newspapers to his house. Very cool.
That's how I made money to buy my first airplane and pay for my lessons when I was 16.
Very, very neat. Now, you've been flying this airplane for how long?
34 years.
Wow, but it's tricked out because you were telling folks earlier about your night show, but you got a lot of lights on there too. Can you turn on some of those fancy lights?
I believe I have some on right now. You see the strobes?
Yeah. Can you turn on those fancy landing lights, or does that have to be done by me on the ground?
Well, normally that's done by you on the ground. I turn the landing lights on, but not the fancy spotlights. That's your job.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll set that up tomorrow if we have low ceilings. I'll get the remote control out.
There you go. Hey, Rob, you were in diapers when I bought this, weren't you? Yeah, I wish. Yeah, no, I didn't have my pilot's license quite by then. I got my pilot's license in 1982. You've been flying for a while, but I was definitely not in diapers. All right, well, hey, before everybody gets their cameras out, we're going to make a camera pass here for them. We'll do one from the right to left and one from left to right. Here we go. Sounds good. While you do that, I'm going to tell them about how the Royal Canadian Air Force and the Royal Air Force got their Texans, all right? Roger that.
These airplanes, as I mentioned, were used by the Royal Canadian Air Force and the Royal Air Force's advanced trainers, just as the Army Air Force and the Navy used them. And they were being delivered to bases in Canada. War II. And neutrality laws made it illegal to fly a warplane from a neutral country that the United States was at that point into a combatant country, Canada, which was part of the United Kingdom, which was at war with Germany at the time. So these airplanes had to be flown to the Canadian border, stopped, shut down the engine, pushed across the border, had the engine started again, and then flown on to their training bases in Canada. Well, up in Holton, Maine, customs officials from both the United States and Canada got a little creative, and what they did was just shy of the border. Then they would politically move the border from the nose of the airplane to the tail of the airplane, never shutting the engine down, and then they would simply take off and go to their bases. A little creative cooperation prior to America's entry into the war by Canadian and American customs officials, getting a lot more airplanes across the border more quickly to help train pilots for the Royal Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, and nearly...
Okay, Rob, let's teach them about full break windows. Now, I'm the only plane that flies here that can go supersonic during air show.
Yes, that's right. All right, full break windows, 600 horsepower, a big 10-foot swing on Hamilton standard propellers, but those tips are making some extra noise, aren't they, Bill?
You bet. The top tips are supersonic, at least part of my airplane's supersonic.
Pretty cool, buddy. All right, so there's your supersonic propeller tips, Hamilton standard propellers. And you know what? It seems to me that Hartsville Propeller Company of Pickle, Ohio helped make some of those Hamilton standard propeller blades, didn't they?
That is correct. And still made them.
Yes, indeed. And the folks at Hartsville up in Pickle, Ohio made the propellers for the Wright brothers' first military flyer back in 1909. How about that, Bill?
You know why they did that?
Well, you tell them. I do, but you tell them.
Yeah, the original business is they made fans. So it kind of equates us.
Yes, Hartsville Lumber. They were a lumber company. Did a lot with wood. All right, what's coming up, Bill?
Okay, we're going to come back with one more pass and make a salute to all the folks in the armed services, especially all those serving overseas and those that have served overseas, guarding our country and liberty around the world. This is going to be the traditional victory roll.
Very good. Just as anybody coming back and with an aerial victory would do, this is what they'd see just when the fighter pilots were coming to their home bases. From the right, ladies and gentlemen, from the city that taught the world to fly, accelerating to 160 or so miles an hour, watch for the nose to come up and the stick to the left with the victory roll. It's Bill Leff. Let's put your hands together for him.
Hey, Rob, that was also a salute to my alma mater, the Army National Guard and the Air Guard, all the other reserve forces as well.
You betcha, buddy. Well, thanks for a second demo, and we appreciate it so much, Bill.
Okay, I'm going to make a quick flyby position for landing and see you on the ground.
Roger that. Now, as Bill does his last pass here, This is the time to get cameras going. And he'll be bringing it into land with all those strobe lights going. Landing gear coming down. An interesting story, a backstory about the effect and importance of this airplane was that North American Aviation built, as I mentioned earlier, upwards of 20,000 of these airplanes, 22,000, depending on whose history book you read. And the Royal Air Force liked it so much that they wanted North American Aviation to build for the Royal Air Force some airplanes another American airplane that they were flying alongside their Hurricanes and Spitfires during the Battle of Britain. And that was the Curtiss P-40 Warhawk. They were being used as a frontline fighter by the Royal Air Force. Well, the British Purchasing Commission, since Curtiss was unable to keep up with the production needs of the British, they went to North American and said to their president, Dutch Kindleberger, said, Dutch, we want you to build P-40 Warhawks under license, which meant that North American Aviation would get the plans and set up a production line of P-40 Warhawks in their own plant. Well, Dutch Kindleberger didn't want to do it. He said, we don't want to build somebody else's airplane. Plus, they had some knowledge about a new wing that nobody knew much about. And Dutch Kindleberger said to them,